Now we're going to get into the most important piece for anyone developing apps that plan on selling it, especially if you plan on selling B2B like I do at Flow Guide. There's no way around it. Security is the most important piece. Listen, even some of my initial deals, right, is going to go like this. You're going to reach out to people you know, friends, people that have known you over the years. Listen, even my friends, the first thing they ask, is this secure? Does this check this, right? Are you guys SOC 2? My friends, right? Because, they're sincere about what they do. They understand the buying process. There's no way around it. You can't skip security. It has to be reliable and it has to be secure. So that's what I'm going to go over here. I'm going to help consolidate the thoughts on security and how it's going to help you speed up your development time, because I'm going to tell you, trust me when I tell you, trust me, large language models, they can give you information back on security, but it's what it provides you is it's not providing you anything from a secure basis. It's just not. It can lead you down all sorts of paths because it is not contextualizing it from your use case. You have to take ownership of that and you have to guide the model down the path to ensure that you are secure. And this is why I say we need to do it from, getting outputs from the large language models and not the agents, because I have plenty of personal experience, trust me, with this, to where it just provided me stuff and I'm like, whoa, this is crazy. We can't, no way, Jose. So trust me on this. This is going to save you a lot of times. You need to hash this out early in your development process. Don't go back to it. Get it done immediately. And this is why I say Firebase, right? Because most of this you can take care of within Firebase. So let's get going, right? We have storage and we have database. I'm going to focus more on the database, but with the storage and database, in particular with Firebase, you set up what you call rules. So you have your rules in place that's going to define how users can engage with anything that pertains to the storage or the database, right? So as I mentioned, my use case earlier, it's multi-tenant, right? I sell B2B, multi-tenant. So tenants, just think of companies. Companies cannot bleed into each other. They cannot see what this company has going on or this company is stored. You're going to set that up through your rules. Now, let me hang on the database for a second, right? Not only can you control your configurations, your security configurations through rules, but listen, let me tell you this if you're for real about selling. You need to, because your database is the most important layer of the whole build, trust me, there's nothing more important than your database, and you need to handle your database first and foremost. You need to be very, 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 very intentional about what you collect within your database, right? Meaning, if you don't need to collect it, then don't. So let me give you an example. With Flow Guide, right? We don't collect any first party data. You can't even figure out where to put a name into Flow Guide. It doesn't exist, right? This is because in one sense, from my sales background, I understood, because I've been dealing with procurement for years, for organizations of all sizes. I know what they look for and I know what slows down deals. I've done data licensing deals. I've dealt with every regulatory body that you can think of, right? Trust me. But I also represented organizations that had, and many times, world-class engineers. So it was what it was, but as a solopreneur, listen, don't collect data you don't need. If your application can function without personally identifiable data, don't collect it. Now, if you need to collect it, that's cool, but then you need to be collecting it under the standpoint of you should have SOC 2 documentations with you during your development process to understand how you should be handling that information within your database. Trust me on this one. Now, if you're interested in anything SOC 2 related, you can go ahead and reach out to me, right? I do have, the personal consulting that you can find, right? I may even introduce you to somebody that I know that really dives into it, depending on your use case. I have people that I went to directly for help, right? You can lean on large language models a little bit, but you're gonna wanna talk to somebody to ensure that you're treading down the right path. Get it out the way early, get it done, and build and develop with it on your mind. So listen, don't collect anything that you don't need to be collecting. And it's going to save you money, right? The 3 ways your database is charging you is for read, write, delete, right? So the more, and the read is what really gets, right? The write can get up there, delete not so much, depending on the use cases, right? But the more that you're putting into your database, ultimately, the more you're going to get charged, because every time you have to make a query to that database or pull up something, it's going to read everything. Now, of course, there's sophisticated ways to handle your queries, right? But just rule of thumb, the more you have in there, the more you're going to get charged, because it's going to have to read through everything. So you're actually doing yourself a favor by keeping down your costs by collecting less data. So now you're not the security risk, and you have cost optimization built in. Trust Big B on this one. Don't do it. Functions, I mentioned on the earlier video, functions do provide an inherent security protection because everything is server side with functions, right? I put right here client side versus server side, right? Client side, this is operations that's done on the client's end. Ultimately, these are exposable, right? Now, there are ways to protect it, which we'll go into next. Server side, everything's happening on the back end, on the server. They are not exposed, right? So what you can get into functions, you probably should. Now, be careful, because functions can get a bit unpredictable when it comes to cost considerations. However, a rule of thumb, if any operation is going to your database, get it into a function, okay? So I went over the client side, server side, right? Quick rule of thumb for that. I do want to say that for anything client side, one of the number one concerns for founders, especially first-time founders, solopreneurs, oh, someone's going to steal my app, someone's going to steal my idea. Listen, no one's going to steal your idea. Like I said, it's going to be hard enough for you to try to sell your idea to somebody. It's going to be hard enough for you to try to get anyone to even pay attention to your idea, let alone steal your idea. But listen, I empathize. I get it. And general rule of thumb, it looks tacky to have, all of your app's configurations in place just behind a simple browser check. So you're going to want to use an obfuscator, right? So use an obfuscator to, I would say, anonymize all of your outputs. They do a very good job at it. There's a lot of them, right? You're going to want to use this to hide your code, right? Use it, trust me, don't be exposed, right? Use this, and now you're even more secure. Dependencies. Your app is going to rely on a lot of dependencies, right? And here is a vulnerability within large language models. Listen to me clearly. With large language models, this is a big vulnerability, because large language models, a lot of times they're dealing with information from the past. Well, not a lot of times, they are, right? And they're going to tell you to install dependencies within your application that are likely stale, that have major vulnerability risk. So I'll give you an example. I believe it was like React 18 that took place, that had like a major vulnerability at the end of last year. This is February 2026. So around November, I believe React 18, right? All sorts of notifications went out. I hadn't even seen this before. All sorts of notifications went out. You gotta upgrade immediately because things are bad, right? Third parties were reaching out. Hey, listen, you're on React app. I believe it was React 18, if I'm not mistaken. Double check that. But you gotta move it up. Well, listen, just a couple weeks ago, I built out another website using large language models, and it recommended React 18. It created a zip file. I was like, what is this? Don't give me this. And it had React 18 in it, right? It just doesn't know. It didn't know. So, and that's just one example. So it will provide dependencies that are no good. It happens a lot. So you need to independently check the dependencies that are going into your application. They're very simple. You can just Google search it. You go to npm on Google, right? And then you find out what dependency you want to do. It will take you to the site. You can see the newest version of it, how to install the newest version, and then you just install it within VS Code. So it will give you instructions for exactly how to install it. And when I say instructions, listen, it's super simple. It's a one-line prompt. That's it. That's it. So make sure you install the latest, most secure version. Do not ever, ever, ever rely on any sort of zip file that the large language model is going to give you to put into your application for a dependency. Huge vulnerability. Big B told you, trust me. Secret manager. So I don't want to forget this one before we move on from security. And then I think after that, you should be straight from a security standpoint just to get going. Secret managers, I use Firebase, so you can use secret manager within Google, right? This is my preferred method. What secret manager is anytime you have an API key or any sorts of keys, you hear key, think it needs to be it needs to be protected. Any sort of key, rule of thumb, key, protected, right? So API keys, any sort of key. If you're using Google Cloud, right, you can set up your secret manager. You just prompt into your VS Code terminal. All right, here's the new secret manager. It's going to ask you, okay, provide that for me. Cool, you provide it. And now you can put wherever, like if it's in a function, more likely it's going to exist in a function, right? But whether a function, whether it's client side, now you can put, the secret manager name of that key directly into your code without having to expose that key. So make sure you're doing secret manager. If you're not doing secret manager, a very common way is having a .env file, which works just like a secret manager. A .env file, you just make sure that the .env file is excluded from your production build, right? So just a little tip on that. You make sure this file is not included in your production build, and then you can put all of your key information along with the alias of that key within .env. And so then any of your files where you're adding that code to, you just add the alias name, just like you would with the secret manager. Secret manager is going to give you alias name. You would add the alias name into that code file, and then you're good to go. So rules for storage and database, functions, server side, always lean towards server side. Anything that's client side, use the obfuscator. Dependency, never, ever, ever, ever install a dependency straight from the large language model. Always, always utilize a secret manager or a .env file for your keys, right? Do this from the start. Do not collect information that you don't need. Do not trust me with your database. Keep it simple. If you don't need to collect any personally identifiable data, then don't. Always just double check that. Ask, is this even necessary? Reduce the amount of information you collect. It will also make your certifications on the back end much easier. If you're doing B2B, it is what it is, right? It might be a bit of extortion, I don't know, but you are going to have to get compliant with SOC 2. You might have to get ISO certified. You're just going to have to do those things, right? And the less you collect, the easier it is to get certified, and the cheaper it's going to be to get certified. So just trust me on that one. But do security from the very, very beginning, right? These are all courses. These are all things that you just need to do at the very beginning. Have all of this in place at the very, very beginning, and you'll be good to go.